consumer equilibrium problems are very important because they're what's behind a demand curve. Every demand curve has a series of consumer equilibrium problems behind them. So let me show you how that works. First, we start off with a budget. And the question is, given the budget, given the prices of goods, and given the utility that we get from different quantities of goods, how can we spend our budget to bring in the most utility? That, in a nutshell, is what the problem is. So anybody?
I can see it.
Did I lose you guys?
I can't. It's on.
You went mute.
It's on Michael's face right now.
Say it again.
There, now I can see it.
Okay. All right. Michael, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the scenario. We have $12 to spend. We can spend it on Frisbees or we can spend it on books. And here's what the prices of those things are. And different quantities that we buy give us this amount of total utility, right? In the TU category. Okay, now, since dollars are scarce in a consumer equilibrium problem, we want to be smart about this. We want to spend every dollar where it brings in the most utility to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. More precisely, we want to spend those dollars where it brings in the most marginal utility, because the marginal utility is what we get from one more item. So the first thing to do in this problem is we need to figure out what marginal utility is given total utility. And that's what's in this table. Okay, down here. So how do you figure out marginal utility from total utility?
Isn't it just the difference between?
It is. Okay. So for example, for the first Frisbee is worth 7 units of utility. If we had no Frisbees, we would get no utility, and so the marginal utility is 7. Then for the second, what's it going to be for the second one? 6.
6.
And then third one?
5.
5. See, I'm trying to make the math really hard for you guys. Fourth one is 4. Fifth one is 3. Sixth one is
2.
Switched it up a little bit here.
1.
1. And what's the seventh one?
0.
0, right. So we do the same thing for the books, okay? So it's going to be 8. Line that up a little better. And 4. And 2. And 1. And 0. And wait a minute. -1. What's minus marginal utility mean?
In the case of books, I'd say, okay, now you've got to rent out space to shelve your books. So you're losing value of buying additional books.
For whatever item you're looking at, marginal utility means it actually makes you worse off than before. Okay, and as a practical matter, you're never going to spend scarce dollars on something that makes you worse off. So once you get into the negative territory, you can just stop. Okay. Now, which item has the first marginal utility? Which item has the most marginal utility?
Frisbees.
Well, the first Frisbee gives you 7 units of utility.
Books.
But the first book gives you 8 units of utility. And eight is better than 7. Does that mean that the first thing you should buy is a book?
No.
It's a trick question. And the reason why is because books and Frisbees cost different prices. Okay, so what you need to do next is to divide marginal utility by price so you can figure out what you're getting on a per dollar basis. After all, it's dollars which are scarce. So let's do that. Okay. What's the price of a Frisbee? Does anybody remember? We can scroll back up here. $2 for a Frisbee, $4 for a book. Okay, so when you do the math, it's 7 divided by 2 is 3.5, right? Oh,
Mhm.
that's not pretty.
We'll follow.
Okay,
I think we follow.
okay. Then it's 3. Then it's 2.5. Oh, I see. I just need to make this one a little bigger. No, that didn't really help. Okay. Then 2. Then 1.5. Then 0.5. And then 0. Okay. And then doing the same thing for books, except using the book price. Book price is $4. You get 2, 1,
1.5,
0.5,
0.25.
0.25, and then you get into you get into 0 and negative territory. And that, so, we could do the math, but it doesn't really, it's not economically meaningful. Okay, now you can compare books and Frisbee in the same terms. Per dollar that you spend, which should you buy first? Lisa? Lisa?
Yeah,
What do you get if you buy the first Frisbee? How much marginal utility per dollar?
3.5.
Correct. And how much do you get for the first book?
2.
So which should you buy first?
The Frisbee.
Correct. And that's what you do. You say, okay, I'm going to buy a Frisbee because that money is better spent on Frisbees than on books. Okay, so you keep track, that's $2 down, and I have 12 to spend. Okay, next, what do you buy?
Another Frisbee.
If you buy another Frisbee, what's the marginal utility per dollar spent?
Still greater than one book.
It's going to be 3 because you already have one Frisbee, so one more will be the second one. But you have no book, so you're comparing the second Frisbee to the first book. And 3 is greater than 2, and so what that means is you buy a second Frisbee. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, we now spent $4. All right. What do you buy third?
Another Frisbee.
Okay, Lisa, do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, because 2.5 is greater than 2, now you spent $6. You have $6 left to spend. What do you buy?
Can you do either a book or a Frisbee because they're the same? They're both-
Exactly. And in fact, you have $6 left. You can buy one of each. And at that point, you've spent your $12. And that means you've reached your consumer equilibrium. So the answer to the problem here, how should you spend your budget, is you should buy 4 Frisbees and 1 book based on these numbers here.
Okay.
All right. Now, if you do it right, what you should find out is that the marginal utility, the marginal utility for the last Frisbee is exactly the same as the marginal utility of the last book. Okay, that's a sign that you've done the problem correctly. If they're not the same, what that means is that you could reallocate your budget and probably raise your utility.
Okay.
And you can test that. See, I mean, what you can do, you can say, okay, how much total utility do we have from this way of spending our budget? Well, we have $22, or sorry, 22 units of utility from Frisbees, and we have 8 units of utility from books. So that's a total of 30 units of utility. Now let's look at any other way of spending the money, okay? If we bought 2 books, how much money would we spend there?
Total of 8.
$8.
$8, which means we have 4 left. So we could buy 2 books and 2 Frisbees. That would be the $12. And lots of times that's your natural inclination, is to split your money between the 2 items. But look what the outcome would be. If you bought 2 Frisbees, you'd get 13 units of utility, and 2 books would give you 12 units of utility. What's 13 plus 12?
25.
25. And that's less than the 30 you would get by doing it the correct way that I showed you.
Okay.
Okay. So that's always going to be the right answer. If you look at marginal utility per divided by the price, which is marginal utility per dollar spent, and you buy things from highest to lowest until your budget runs out, you're going to get the right answer, and you're going to maximize your utility. Okay.
Now I have a question for you.
Sure.
Utility is based on personal preference.
Yes.
So my utility for an item may be different than your utility for an item.
Absolutely. Yes.
I might value books much more than Lisa does.
Yeah. Yeah. So these numbers would differ with a different person.
Just arbitrary.
But what economists are arguing is that anybody who wants to maximize their utility would use this process, though everybody might get a different answer.
Okay, and that's fine. Well, okay. In the world of economics,
Mhm.
How do you go about? How do economists go about assigning utility to?
Well, we can't. I mean, it's immeasurable. But for example, when you buy items in the grocery store, you know what you like, and you can make decisions about whether something is a good deal or not, based on your perceived quality for the item.
Okay, that's as long as I understand that it's an arbitrary number based on a personal preference.
Yep.
Do you ever get to the point where you're evaluating what people like versus what people utility of what people want or like versus what they need, as in food, clothing, shelter?
Right. But I'm not evaluating what they need or want. What I'm saying is you evaluate for yourself what you need or want, and then you use this process to figure out how to best spend your money. Okay. All right. Well, now let's take it the next step. Because part of what's interesting about this is we start with utility, which is not measurable, and we're going to end up with something which is very measurable. Okay, let's suppose that books go on sale. Okay, books are now $2 a piece. So what that means is the marginal utility numbers stay the same because they're based on the intrinsic quality of the book, but the marginal utility divided by the price is now double, right? Because the price has been cut in half. So now these numbers are going to go up to 4, 2, 1, and 0.5. All right. Now, when we do the consumer equilibrium problem, we may get a different answer, okay? what's the, Lisa, you with us?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the first thing we should buy now, Lisa?
Oh, sorry.
If we bought a Frisbee, it would be worth 3.5 units of utility.
The book.
But if we buy a book, the first book, because it's on sale, is now worth 4 units of utility. So the first thing we would do here is buy a book. Then what would we buy?
A Frisbee.
We buy a Frisbee. And then we would buy, what else?
Another Frisbee.
And then we would buy,
Either a book or a Frisbee.
no, it's 2.5 is greater than 2.
Oh, sorry. Another Frisbee.
Okay. And then we would just have enough money left over to buy one more Frisbee and one more book. So in this case, the consumer equilibrium would be here, which is 4 Frisbees and 2 books. Okay, so we used the same process. We got a different consumer equilibrium because the price was different. But now what we can do is take it actually a step further. Remember demand. A demand curve shows the relationship between price and how much people will want to buy, right? So with our original price of books at $4, how many books did the consumer equilibrium say we should buy? The answer was 1. Remember, it was 4 Frisbees and 1 book. Now that we've cut the price of books to $2, what happens to the quantity of books that we end up buying? It goes from 1 to 2, right? So a decrease in the price of books gave us a different consumer equilibrium answer, one that corresponded to a higher quantity demanded for books. Okay, so that really is the punchline here. Behind every demand curve is a set of consumer equilibrium problems. So even though we can't measure utility, we can measure what people buy. And so we can kind of infer what the utility would have been, not exactly, but we can get some inferences about that by kind of working backwards.
As a producer, you want to increase the utility of your product,
Yeah.
or which could be translated to as the appeal of your product,
Right.
as well as the usefulness of your product. So, okay.
Yeah. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
Absolutely. Yes.
Good.
Now,
Yeah.
When you go and you graph these numbers,
Yep.
then you could. Okay. Again, the utility is going to be dependent upon the price.
The marginal utility.
Marginal utility is going to be dependent on the price. So we could theoretically look at a chart and say which one has greater marginal utility.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Oh, and once again, I didn't
Follow
point
that?
this out, but once again, in our consumer equilibrium, the marginal utility divided by the price is going to be equal. So it's going to be 2 and 2 again. All right, any other questions?
I think I might have misstated what marginal utility is. The difference between one additional.
The marginal utility is a
What I said.
pure subjective number, but the marginal utility divided by the price varies with the price.
Right. Okay. So what we're actually graphing is the marginal utility divided by the price, not the marginal utility.
Well,
what I said.
yes. Yeah, I knew what you meant.
In my example.
Okay. So, you know, what we could do with one of these problems is we could say, all right, suppose the prices stay the same, but your income goes up. All that would mean is that when you get to this point with 4 Frisbees and 2 books, you still have money left over, so you don't stop there. You keep on going. So you keep on going in this using the same process until your money runs out.
and it should always come out to zero. Your final choice.
If you do your math right, yes. Okay, now let me ask the final question here. What we've established is that demand depends on the price of the product. It depends on the price of substitute products, and it depends on income, right?
Right.
Because each of those things affects the consumer equilibrium solution. How would we show, in a problem like this, how would we show a change in tastes?
Would the marginal utility change?
All the utility numbers would change,
All of them?
yes. That would be a change in tastes. Great. So you got it.
The total utility. Well, it would start with the total utility and then the difference between.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Good. All right.
That helps to clarify an awful lot.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. And what I'm going to do next time is I'm just going to take this video and put it on the page so that people can find it, just like last semester when we had those videos.
Right.
It was a fair work, and I didn't have a chance to do it with the micro class, but maybe I'll